Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Bad Boys for Life. This movie is directed by co-directors Balil and Adal. This movie stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Bad Boys for Life, or Bad Boys 3, finds our two favorite police detectives, Mike and Marcus, much older from when we last saw them. They're now contemplating what they want to do with their remaining years and have almost parted ways. One wants to pursue retirement while the other one wants to stay in the cop life. It's not until two ghosts from their past come back to haunt them, causing them to reunite once again. When I heard they were doing another Bad Boys movie, I was not excited at all. Because the first two were fine. The first one was original, it was a classic. Then they made a sequel. They didn't have to, but they did. And now, almost 16 years later, they're making another sequel. It was overkill in my opinion. But I saw the movie, and I was really surprised with it. And I actually enjoyed it a lot. Let me start off with the main characters. Martin Lawrence as Marcus. He's really good in this role. And I'm glad he came out of retirement to play this character. He plays the very cautious, at-home family man that gets, dragged around into all these scenarios and conflicts. He's the sidekick that's always unsure about what the lead character is about to do. Of course, he does his Martin Lawrence shtick, where he does the, "Oh, come on, Mike," who doesn't want to go along with the plan, but ends up following anyways. Will Smith as Mike Lowry, really good in this role. I'm glad that Will Smith plays this character the way he does, because he doesn't play him like Will Smith. Will Smith plays a lot of his other roles very similarly. Here, he's very serious. He's solo. He's kind of hard-headed. He's the one that can't wait to get into the fight, to jump in head first. And so the dynamic between the two men is really good. Just like in Lethal Weapon 4, they play off their age in this movie. They don't act like they're teenagers, they just became cops like they did in the original. They're older. They know they can't be running around, jumping into all these scenarios, getting into fistfights and sleeping with women, because they're older, they have lives and limits. I also liked how Martin Lawrence was the one that would rather stay home with his family wearing, a bathrobe, lounging in a recliner, whereas Mike is still the bachelor. He still wants to wear the silk shirts. He still wants to live as if he's young, but he knows he can't. So there was actually a dynamic between these two men, aside from just their buddy cop, classic lingo that we've come to expect. Something I really enjoyed about this movie were the side characters. The film didn't just focus on Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. For example, the villains was a male-female combination that not only were fleshed out, they provided some backstory to Mike's character, but also they were involved with some of the most shocking scenes in the movie. They weren't just some one-note character like a gangster or some drug lord that the two detectives were sent to stop. No, they actually made their presence felt in the plot. You also had the captain, played by the great Joe Pantoliano, who was not only just hilarious when he loses his temper, but he also acted as like this father figure to these younger detectives. And then you had the side group of cops headed by Paolo Nunez, who's this older woman that kind of has some interaction with Mike, but also is not bad to look at. Then you had Henry Golding, who's like the young, brash, cocky kid that has to be put into his place and learn his lesson. You had Vanessa Hudgens, who's also great to look at, but also added some character to the group. And then you had this big blonde guy that was in the first Hunger Games movie, who's like this techie guy that doesn't like violence, which, if you know your movies, you can tell where that's going. Something else I really enjoyed about this movie that set it apart from not only the other Bad Boy films, but also rated R movies in general, was the violence. And I'm not saying that because I'm a sicko. I mean that because the violence, even though it was few and far between, it was kind of important. Because not only were certain characters gravely injured that helped move the narrative along, but you cared about the characters that were harmed. Also, the violence was surprising and sudden. You didn't see it coming. So when a character gets stabbed or shot or what have you, you're like, oh my gosh, and it jolts you awake and it makes you pay attention. So the violence here was very wisely used. A lot of rated R movies just have, gang shootouts or people just killed just because they could. Here, it's used strategically, which a lot of movies don't do. The only gripe I had with the film is that there's a couple instances where things happen that make you go, yeah, right, that would not happen. They would die or be seriously injured. Or things that were just, not practical that took you out of the movie. For example, Mike is chasing down this suspect and he falls out of this balcony, and someone who would really be injured and seriously hurt, he just kind of brushes it off like he's Superman. And there's a couple things like that, especially in the third act, that make you go, haha, yeah, right. But other than that, this movie was really well done. It wasn't produced or created by Michael Bay, even though he has a cameo in it. The characters were fleshed out. The music was popping, even though a lot of it was, Miami themed. The scenery was nice to look at, and these characters played these roles as if they were older men. They didn't act like they felt like actual characters that we have grown to know and love. And so because of that, and because this Bad Boys movie is probably my favorite of the trilogy, I'm going to give Bad Boys for Life a B+. So until next time, guys, see ya.